Every new Claude session starts without rules. Claude makes its own assumptions about your stack, your test framework, your conventions, even when your codebase has already answers for all of them. Watch this. We're gonna ask Claude to write the test. We have already a couple of tests there, and look at how we defined the tests, and look at how Claude will probably respond with totally different namings and totally different captions. So this is not Claude's fault. Claude is not stupid. It's just guessing, because every session starts the same way. The thing is, it's not Claude that's broken in this case, or the AI that's doing stuff you wouldn't expect it to do. You didn't give it the rules it needs, for instance, how you define your tests and how you write your function names. The fix is simply not a better prompt, it's writing your rules down at the place where AI picks it up every time. Let's have a look what we learned in last week's episode. We started with read before you write to have a broad understanding of the code base. Then we looked at the map and the focus strategy, and we said we build on what's already there. This episode is focused on making this one repeatable, that we don't have to start from scratch with every new session. You've probably seen this pattern before when you are in software engineering. We had editor configs, linter rules, commit hooks, contributor docs, and alike. So this is not something new which we have to reinvent now for AI. This is something we already have everywhere. And for AI specifically, and in this case Claude, we have a new entry. This is the CLAUDE.md. This is the single place where we write all our information about how AI should behave. The thing is, standards we do should belong into code, not into our heads, and CLAUDE.md is this code which Claude always picks up. Whenever you start a new session, Claude first reads the CLAUDE.md, and this is where we write all our information we have there. One other thing about this one, this is a very strong nudge. It's not a hard enforcement. You might get out of the guidelines you set there, but it does give you a lot of stability in how Claude responds to your prompts. If you need hard enforcement, there are different mechanisms that enable that one. But this is going well beyond today's scope, which we want to focus on in this episode. We will learn about this throughout the next couple of episodes, how you can even reach a stronger enforcement of standards. Now let's have a look at how CLAUDE.md can be structured. The thing is, it's fully up to you how you build it, but I'm just giving you some best practices how I'm doing it. So I do have one section which is about the project facts. I write the stack, for instance, is it Python or whatever. I write how you run it, how you test it, what linters you do, and some conventions about how you do your functions and stuff like that. Later on, we will also learn how you bring this into dedicated sub-agents, but this is not the topic of today. The other section I always explicitly make is the modes. This is very important because you need Claude to know which aspect they are working on. Do they work on the research mode, or the plan mode, or on the build mode? Research and plan we already described throughout the last couple of sections. So let's have a brief look at how this looks like. So the research section, normally I'll define in CLAUDE.md as read only. I'll give you the guided walkthrough how we do this map and focus phases with all the 4 different subphases. So Claude always stays close to that. I'll also show Claude. Then I also plug in the plan mode. This was part of episode 2, how we plan stuff. And I'm also adding a build mode. A 4th mode, which is not in this workflow per se, is the spike mode. This is an exploratory mode when I'm not sure what I want to achieve yet. So I want to just do some back and forth prompting with Claude Code. So this is I call it an escape hatch. What I also tell explicitly to Claude is that Claude always needs to tell me in which mode you are, so that I can be sure when we are in plan mode that it not randomly starts writing code straight away. And I tell Claude to always open it with the specific mode. A couple of additions to that, which helps you working with CLAUDE.md, is you have this init command, which creates this first starter file for you. You have the auto memory. This is where Claude notes to itself. So when it figures out some recurring patterns, and in one of the future seasons and episodes, we will look at skills and rules, which narrow them down and make them much better. But this is too much for today. So now let's go into Visual Studio Code. So here we have an empty project folder, and we want to start now by coding. So we fire up Claude, start a new session, and we start by saying /init. This will now tell Claude to initialize the repository we have here, and it will auto-create us a Claude.md file. So this is the one we will work with today. Let's speed this up while Claude is working. So now we have our Claude.md file, and this is now at the project root. So whenever we start a new session that it's being loaded, let's jump straight into this Claude.md file. What we can see here is saying some generic things and saying, okay, this directory is currently empty, blah, blah, blah. So it does not really help us much. So we're going to delete the one. And we start from scratch. We create a brand new Claude.md. So I'll copy paste this over because this would take far too long to type it while you have to watch me typing. This is odd. So now we have our first iteration of our Claude.md file. Here we say this is a demo project showing Claude.md usage. We define the stack, which is Python 3.12, PyTest for testing, or for linting. And we add some generic conventions like type hints and all public functions. Functions stay small, keep them under 20 lines. Comments explain the why, not the what. Tests live next to the code. Prefer raising specific exceptions over generic ones. And this one would not recommend it for real, but just for the demo effect to kick in, I would say start every function with demo underscore. So we're going to save that one, and now Claude will pick it up with every new session we'll do. Now this is a very lightweight and a very small one. Let's start a new session and say So the session which I did is I want to create a new function called calculate that takes two numbers and adds them together, print the output to the console. So this should be a really easy task. Let's start again here and kick this off, and I will speed up while Claude is coming back with the results. So what you can see already here, it picked up the Claude.md and remembered this demo thing. I think the comment comes from, okay, this doesn't make sense, but let's see it. And we can see here the Python function actually starts with demo calculate. So we can see that we already have a really working Claude.md file. Let's now extend this by a bit, especially by a workflow, so that we can dive deeper. So now we're going to extend the one. So what we do now is we add workflow steps. So we tell Claude that we always want to have different modes. So targeting three modes, the research, plan, and implement mode. We already have research and plan before, so you are aware of what I'm doing here. So let's first always declare a current mode at the top of your response, like mode research. So this will tell Claude.md that it should always print me the real mode so that I know where I'm in. In the research mode, we have the following thing. We say read code, do not edit it. Summarize structure, key functions and conventions you find, identify gaps, assumptions, or risks before moving on. Do not propose solution yet. This is plan's job. Then the next one is plan, produce a plan, no code yet, specify which file changes and what changes go in each. State assumptions and trade-offs explicitly, stop and wait for confirmation before moving on. Implement, write the code, follow the conventions above, include tests with each implementation. If the plan turns out wrong, stop and switch back to plan mode. So we are not really following what we learned in research and plan here at the moment, because this would be a bit too complex and I'd rather have this in sub-agents, but this is a topic of a further episode. So we on purpose keep this one small here so that you are aware and that you don't need to read over too much code. Let's close the one and go back to our Claude session, start up a new session, and I'll ask, give me an overview of this project. So it would again read the Claude.md, and what we can see here as we are in the research mode. Now it's telling me this is a small demo project illustrating Claude.md usage patterns. It's giving me the structure and stuff like that. Of course, we do not have a really complicated thing here, so it will not come with this big overview. And now we go into the plan mode. Okay, so now I'll start by asking Claude to add a new function. So I'll tell it, okay, now I want to add a new function that is about calculating pi to the third digit. So let's kick this off and wait for Claude to come back. So now we have here already, again, the mode definition. It's telling me we are in plan mode. Also, it's telling me that what the goal is. It's doing what changes it needs to do. It would pull this into a new function, pi, and create a new test file and some assumptions to confirm. So what we can see now is it also declared that we are in the implementation mode. And here in the implementation mode, we can see this pi. It's following my assumptions that we have the demo pi and that we have this demo pi function here, that we have the test function as well. So what we can see here is that Claude now follows my rules, it follows my guidelines, and I've also created a simple workflow with it. Of course, normally this would be much more complex. I recommend you keeping Claude.md on purpose small and pull most of the logic into separate agent files and even use skills for that. But again, this is subject to a further episode, so don't worry about this yet. I think with this setup, you can start by creating your first batch of rule sets around it. Let's briefly recap what we learned in this episode. First, we defined that you always need to write your rules down. This is the Claude.md. You pick the mode, like research, plan, and implement. And without the rules, Claude drifts much more, so it's not a strong nudge as we defined, but it does give you a lot of reliability that you stay close to what you actually want to achieve. Now let's have a look at the next week's episode. Now we learned that Claude follows your rules, but following your rules isn't the same thing as getting it actually right. In next week's episode, we will look at how you scope your edits before they land and rolling back when something goes wrong. We will look at an escalation ladder, how that you can apply in order to make things better. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to connect with me on either GitHub, LinkedIn, or X. Thank you.